Happy holidays, everyone. My name is Beret, and sometimes I wear a Santa hat. And what better way to end the year than with a top 5 list? The top 5 best blasters of 2023. Let's go! But I don't want to make that video, because for one, I didn't pick up every blaster of 2023. There were a lot. What is that, a top 5 Nerf blasters of 2023? Are we going to do modified blasters, pro blasters? Instead, let's do something that makes more sense to my channel. I went to over a dozen games this year and used at least 3 times that many different blasters. So what I can give you the best opinion on is my loadouts. So today we're doing my top 5 loadouts of 2023. A few important distinctions to make with this list. Number 1, it's entirely my opinion, based off of my user experience. And number 2, they're not necessarily new releases of 2023. Some of them might be, but some of them may have been released years prior that I have in my collection. And I guess number 3, I don't necessarily still own these blasters. Even if they were good or bad, things change. We'll get a new Arsenal video update maybe later in January. But you might still be wondering then, what makes a top blaster loadout in my opinion? I'm gonna say the user experience and the context are the most important things here. They don't have to be necessarily the highest performing blasters. The top pro blasters of the year to ever exist, that's not necessarily what makes the biggest difference in my opinion. There were many blasters I used this year that were objectively just good. They performed reliably, and I used them effectively. But that was just kinda it, and ultimately those blasters find themselves in the middle of the pack. And we can't really talk about all the blasters I used this year, so we're just gonna look at the top for today. So, without further ado, my 100% biased user experience top 5 loadouts of 2023. Number 5, the Dartzone Pro Mark II. Well, I told you, didn't I? They're not all going to be brand new blasters, and the Mark II is definitely not new. So why this one? Also, there have been spiritual successors and literal successors. The Mark 2.1. Why the Mark II? It's objectively lower powered. Well, this one in particular was also a gift from Luchathor. He modified it as well. There's a brass barrel in there. May have done something with a spring too. I consider this to still be his blaster, so at any point he could call me up and say he wants it back. This blaster can hit about 150 FPS reliably now. That's not exactly the most powerful thing ever either. So why? I've found the Mark II to be an excellent blaster when it comes to playing the objective. Yes, this is something that you can take out and you can have the little quick reload magazines or clips, whatever they are, the ones with the dart storage inside, the stripper clips, or you could just top load it. That works pretty well too, and I like having something that isn't just a single shot that I can reload on the fly that gets pretty good performance. It's compact with the holster it comes with. You can also store this on your body, run around really easily, and even if it falls out, I mean, it's probably not gonna break unless you really drop it, so the injection molded nature definitely helps. There's also a 3D printed part that Luchathor got that can slide over the front and allow you to attach up to 4 different Picatinny style attachments to this blaster, meaning like a little rocket or a big old sight, which is hilarious. And that just makes for a funny user experience, and people are like, what, why? And I'll admit, it's still not the most comfortable. The handle can be a little bit odd. When the Mark II first came out, I thought it wasn't going to be for me, but ever since I started playing with it, I found that it just really worked in my arsenal. And I guess that's what's funny about testing blasters for an extended period of time. Sometimes the ones you think you're not gonna like end up being your favorites. So, Dartzone Pro Mark II, it's still primed. Number 4, the Nerf Limited Halo Needler. I told you, it's not always about performance, and sometimes it's about one experience that makes you think, man, I want to keep using that blaster. The Halo Needler is one of my favorite Nerf Limited releases. I'm not gonna rank and compare everything as it stands, but as someone who enjoys Halo and was excited when the Needler came out, I am happy to say that I have used this in a game and it was a freaking riot. There is something they did really well with this blaster in making it look like a prop, but also giving it just enough function where it's like, yeah, I could actually use that. I mean, it's like, it's 10 rounds, there's 10 darts in here. The reload kinda sucks. And yeah, it doesn't fire like a bazillion balls out the top. It fires Nerf dart needles, full lengths. Oh no, can we convert it to half lengths? No, it's a needler. Fires needles. And fortunately, I was able to get to use this in a lower light situation too, where you could see the beautiful needles shining through. I think that's the best way to use this. I also saw Andrew Dart Sweep using this, or at least had it out at Maryland Mayhem at one of the evening games. perfect. Wish I could have brought mine. Too much of a hassle to bring this across the country though, but that's where I want to use this again. Something in that situation where you look at this blaster and you see just something silly, something goofy, something that you are legally allowed to then yell at people in your worst Covenant impressions. And that, I think, is something you can't do with any other blaster. You might get kicked off the field, but with the Halo Needler, you are legally allowed to do that. It's a slow rate of fire, the performance is okay for a stock Nerf blaster, that's for darn sure, but when you can see the light up feature, and you can see the sheer confusion in other people's eyes as they realize what's being fired at them, I think there is no more fun blaster that Nerf has released recently than something like this. I actually received this as a Christmas gift last year, so I was very quick to bring it to a game in the beginning of 2023, and yes, I've only gotten to use it once in one of those scenarios, but it was just enough fun that I was able to justify putting it on this list. Number 3, the Nerf Pro Strife X. Uh-oh folks, boring blaster alert. It's a Strife that fires half darts. In the year 2023 going into 2024, Nerf's late to the party, boo, Omnia Pro's cheaper. This thing is so satisfying to use. As someone who doesn't use flywheels too often, this is exactly what I was looking for. I'm not going to defend every single detail on this blaster because sure, there are some things that could be nicer. There are things I don't like about this blaster for sure, but the overall positives severely outweigh it. And the rechargeable battery is just so nice. I mean, I can bring a portable charger or just the charging cable, plug it into the wall, and have it ready to go. I wish they sold more of those separately, that would make it even better, but that thing is also just really easy to keep charging. Compatibility with other magazines. This is the kind of flywheel blaster that I can just keep throwing into my gear, and it works. It works so well, guys. Like, I love the feel of this blaster. I feel like I have complete control over a flywheel blaster, which is the most important thing for me when it comes to flywheels. Up to 160 FPS is not going to win any like 200 plus games, but when played appropriately, this is still pretty darn good, especially as you get closer to people. Snappy, responsive, it shoots straight. I mean, assuming you're using good darts, the Strife X just freaking works. And because of that, and because Nerf did a pretty good job with their first official Nerf Pro blaster that's not a gel fire blaster, I like it. This is one of the easiest blasters for me to put in my bag, bring to a game, and know that if I just want something reliable that's a flywheel blaster, load up a couple of magazines, pop it in here, and I am freaking set. And this is still going to be a force to be reckoned with on the field because it's the Nerf Pro Strife X. Number 2, the Nerf Zombie Strike Sledge Fire. No matter the new offerings that try to compete with the Sledge Fire, be it from Nerf or from others that try to do a shotgun style blaster, there's something about this thing that will always make it a fan favorite in my opinion. The Sledge Fire is freaking awesome, and I know in stock configuration it leaves a little bit to be desired. This one has been modified just so that you can only fire 3 darts at a time, and the shells will eject a little bit more satisfyingly. I have 35 shells for this blaster. I'll always accept new ones, but that gives me plenty to run this effectively. And what do I mean by that? An effective Sledge Fire in the year 2023 going into 2024? What does that even mean? It's a single shell firing blaster. Use your Spring Thunder, darn it. Well, I do. But the Sledge Fire is really satisfying, and I really like this thing. The shells are also, injection molded, so I can drop them. They have a nice little cling-ling when they hit the ground. I've also gotten pretty good at reloading this thing. You fire, shell out, shell in, pop. Firing a 3-shot burst is still somewhat effective depending on what game you're playing. Sure, in an open field, you might be in trouble. Most people aren't expecting a 3-round burst with a little RNG in there, so you don't even know if it's going to hit them, but it's really satisfying, and you can get a little bit more creative with the accuracy depending on the darts you use. I will genuinely put elite darts into this thing if they're on the ground. It's a shotgun. Why the heck not? That's what it's made for. Let them go poof. It's also just a really comfortable blaster. I like the profile it has, the blue and the orange too. I don't know the exact performance on this blaster. It's definitely going to depend on the darts that you use and depend on how well they're fit into those shells. So it's going to depend on 3 darts and then chronographing 3 darts. You know what I mean. It's tricky, but it's also not terrible. As a stock blaster game like less than 150 FPS, is probably where this would shine. I just want to keep using it, and I think that's the best thing I can say about a blaster in my collection. It's also, you know, still in my logo, my original logo, so that's a good sign. Sledgefire, definitely. Before we get to number 1, here are a few honorable mentions. The xshot Pro Longshot. I used the xshot Longshot quite a bit this year and had a pretty good time with it, whether it was in the stock configuration or a modified configuration. Low and high FPS, it was doing pretty darn well. Pretty solid offering for xshot's first release in the Pro line. Of course, there were some issues. We are all quite well aware of what those are at this point, but there's still a lot of mod potential in that blaster, and people are definitely pushing them to the limits. I'm not going to put it any higher on this list, but pretty solid offering. The dartzone Max Solo. The Solo is probably one of the newest offerings compared to when this list goes live, and at 15 bucks, or when it's discounted to 10, it's pretty great. It's pretty nice to have a Pro Jolt that you can also breech load or you can front load it. It's really fun. It's also very fidgetable. You can close it, open it, close it, open it. I think the Solo is gonna have a long life, and I could see if I get some replacement barrels to fire different darts, it could come back and make its spot on a top 5 list in the future. I also want to see a Solo Pro Tour. I want something that's just all solos and we can have a competition with that, because it would be fun. The Nerf Mr. Beast Gellfire Mythic. Okay, hold on. I need to explain. It's an honorable mention because of this one thing. The fact that you can load Rival in the front of the Mythic is not a useless feature, okay? And I'm using the Mr. Beast one because of the game that I used it in, because that was funny. Also, you can again yell Mr. Beast legally at people, like with the Halo Needler. You can go, oh, you the Mr. Beast Gellfire, you go, Mr. Beast, am I losing you? Were you ever on board? I'm sorry. You don't have to prime anything. You just put a ball in the front, you fire. Like, there's no hassle. There's gotta be something there, right? Right? All right, moving on. The Nerf Limited Destiny Gallarhorn. Many of you probably thought that this would deserve a spot on my top 5 list, and I would agree. The problem is, I didn't get any tags with it. Now, I don't have a Gallarhorn in my collection, and I don't think anyone's brought one to our local games. I got to borrow one from KT at Maryland Mayhem at the 11th hour blaster battle, so my use case with it that time was very limited, and he had quite a few shells, which I think was awesome. Those are printed by SilverFoxIndustries, and I think that gives the Gallarhorn like new life, where some people would probably see like, oh, that's a bottom 5 blaster, easy. With the different shells, it actually has pretty good performance, and the just massive like size factor with trying to fire those darts. I mean, how could you not find that to be a funny loadout? Top 5 funny loadouts, Gallarhorn number 1. As a result of my poor performance, I'm gonna say honorable mention. And my number 1 blaster of 2023, the Worker Harrier. Boring blaster alert, super boring pump action Springer number 1. Wow, this list is trash. And you know, that's what I kind of thought at first too. But I was thinking, how could I not make the Harrier my number 1? This is my primary at this point. If I want to go to a competitive game, whether it's locally or traveling, or if I just want to have something I pull out and say, hey, I'm gonna use this the next round and I want to make sure I get kind of solid performance that's not going to like ruin my shoulder or ruin my arm after usage, it's gonna be this. Worker Harrier freaking rocks my socks. I think I made a video with that title already. I did not think I was going to enjoy the Worker Harrier as much as I did. I don't even think I was gonna buy one. I think Luke from Out of Darts told me it was solid and then I picked it up. I got influenced. You can see I've put many stickers on this too. It is somewhat sticker bombed. It's mine. This is my Harrier. There's no confusing it with anyone else's. Also, there's a hat on that. I don't know what that's all about. The Harrier is just so solid, and what it gives you for that $180 price tag, which is not insignificant, I think is well worth it. And it gives you the different barrel options, the different spring options. I love that that's becoming more normalized so that you can kind of buy one blaster and use it at different performances. It's not the quickest to change out. You just have to open 2 screws though here, and it's still pretty easy. Obviously my rails are off right now, so you could add to it. I've used this so much. I've been really happy with the performance. For our games that are capped at 220 with the included higher spring and the included higher barrel, works perfectly, like just over 200 FPS, nice and easy, and the prime is so smooth. And that return is all, oh, it's beautiful. I know other blasters have done similar stuff and you could argue that they're better. But I don't have those blasters, and I haven't felt the need to get those blasters, including things like the Worker Seagull, because the Harrier just works really darn well. And this is also a Dartzone Pro Mark III stock. I don't own a Mark III currently, but I do own the stock. For some reason, I've felt that that's the most comfortable for me on this blaster. Wow, what a weird thing that carried over. Everything you get out of the box is just up and ready to go, and you can be competitive. You could play casually, you know, at a lower FPS. Maybe at that point you get a different blaster if you want to go really, really low. But for the games that I go to, Harrier's perfect. That's my list. Top 5 loadouts of 2023. If you're watching later, you may have already seen there's a top 5 worst loadouts of 2023. Ooh, what could that be? Hope it's not controversial. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comment section down below. What do you think your top loadouts were? Your favorite blasters, your least favorite blasters? Any overlap here, or any things that you've had for years and years that you still find to be kind of your favorites that maybe no one else is using? Let me know. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.